You're listening to The Cultural Hall with your hosts, Richie T. Stedman and Ashley Garvey Smith. It's a show about Mormon stuff.
Nephi, Alma, Samuel, King's land if they live righteously.
The anticipation is killing you, isn't it? It's episode 30 of The Cultural Hall. It is The Cultural Hall. It's me, Richie T.
And I'm Ashley Garvey Smith.
And Hey, it's episode 30 of The Cultural Hall. Coming up, we've got Joe Anderson, who is the author of the book, How Can You Possibly Be a Democrat and a Mormon?
How can you possibly be a Mormon
and a Democrat?
Yeah.
Right. Same, yeah.
Sort of the same thing.
Not really the same thing. You're right. How can you possibly be a Mormon and a Democrat?
Right.
But Joe Anderson, to give you kind of a heads up, Joe came to us by way of Mitch, Maine, which if you haven't listened to The Cultural Hall before, this may be your first episode. Mitch, Maine, is episode number 13 and number 14.
Right.
And he is a guy that is in the bishopric out in the Bay Ward in San Francisco. And he's the executive secretary. He's openly gay. He doesn't practice homosexuality at this point, but he is had a partner for several years. They broke up. He was then able to remain chaste and was able to receive this calling. And we had that whole conversation with him. It was so good and so long that we ended up breaking it up into 2 episodes. And it's actually the most popular.
Yeah. As a listener, my 2 favorite episodes.
Number 13 and number 14. So
Right.
check that out. But Joe Anderson came to us by way of Mitch, Maine. And to be truthful, I saw the name of the book. It said, How Can You Possibly Be a Mormon and a Democrat? And I said, all right, sure. That makes sense. In Utah especially, there's a lot of talk about, with the Utah Democratic Party talking about, the Mormons kind of shy away, or what are you teaching from the pulpit so that people don't feel like they can be Democrats and be Mormon.
Right.
And so we wanted to invite him in. We have with us in here in the Cultural Hall is an author. We're riddled with authors.
Yes.
We had Joanna Brooks a couple weeks ago, but Clinton Joe Anderson Jr., you've written this book, How Can You Possibly Be a Mormon and a Democrat? And then the byline, Perspectives on Abortion, Economics, the Environment, and Harry Reid. Thank you for being here in the Cultural Hall with us.
Yeah, thank you.
Well, thanks for having me.
Now, tell us how this came about, because you, Mitch, Maine, who was on episode 13 and 14, he said, "Hey, you should talk to this guy Joe Anderson." How do you guys know each other?
I just called him up. I think I emailed him first, and we've been kind of playing phone tag since. So
Called him up,
but we've been emailing back and forth since I heard about him.
To try and get on the Cultural Hall, or you wanted to talk to him about being in the bishopric?
No, yeah, basically. I was thinking, let's do a How Can You Possibly Be a Gay Mormon?
Oh, really?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
And so then, How Can You Possibly Be a Mormon and a Democrat is not your first book.
It is my first book.
It is your first book that's ever written. So what are these other books that you've got all scattered around the room?
Over here we have How Can You Possibly Be an Anti-Terrorist Muslim by Raheel Raza. That is published. That is on Amazon.
Okay.
And she was on the O'Reilly Factor. She was outspoken against the Ground Zero Mosque.
Okay.
So I thought, wow, this... and she was real articulate and stuff like that. She just thought it was rude, Very devout Muslim,
Right.
But she was... I was so impressed that I just called her right up after that and said,
Okay.
can I be your publisher? And
nice.
she kind of said yes.
So these are all books then that you've published, not necessarily.
And then you wrote the
authored.
foreword to this, How Can You
Yes,
Possibly Be
yes.
an Anti-Terrorist Muslim? And then you published this, How Can You Possibly Be a Muslim Feminist?
That is forthcoming. Everything else is forthcoming that you see.
Okay.
Oh, really?
Yes.
So this book in front of me, people won't even be able to purchase yet the How Can You Possibly Be a Mormon and a Republican?
Yep.
This looks pretty worn for a book that's never been...
That's a mock-up.
Okay.
Or I was trying to do an Ezra Taft Benson kind of printed in the 1960s look.
Oh, there
But
you go.
no,
Yeah.
it's a mock-up.
You won. You got it.
Yeah, I did my best. Yeah.
So then this book, How Can You Possibly Be a Mormon and a Democrat? Perspectives on Abortion, Economics, the Environment, and Harry Reid. It's available now on Amazon. So
And Deseret Book.
really,
Yes.
they sell it within
Yes.
Deseret Book? Let me ask you this then. First off, that raises the question, what do you have to do in order to be approved by Deseret Book? Because not everything written by members of the church or
Right.
about the church is approved for Deseret Book.
Well, they certainly rejected me at first when I sent them the manuscript. But when I was told by a Mormon Democrat publisher to self-publish, then I said, oh, if a publisher's telling me I should do it, I'll do it. So I ended up doing that and publishing it myself and starting the publishing company. And then I got a distributor, Brigham Distribution, and they've been great. And they are the ones that got me pretty much in contact with Deseret Book. They distribute like a ton of stuff.
Like what? Like what are some other things that people might know about?
I saw the Setting the Record Straight series.
Okay.
On their shelves in their warehouse.
And various other books.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So then now it's self-published, and then you go back to Deseret Book?
Oh, basically, it was the Book Buyers Convention in August. They introduced me to several booksellers, but the Deseret Book lady had a few concerns, so they got me together with her, and I resolved her concerns.
What were some of the concerns they had?
Well, just
The title.
the title. Yeah, you've grown up in the church. You've heard that phrase.
Yeah.
Mormon, Democrat.
And it's always asked rhetorically, as if you can't be, And I said, I assure you, it's not partisan, even though I'm a conservative Republican. But I don't like partisanship, and so I wrote a whole book in defense of Mormon Democrats.
So besides being in defense of Mormon Democrats, what's the book about, or how do you approach it, and give us the meat of it?
Well, I wish you could read the optional introduction. It's wonderful. In there, I let in a little secret. Of course, I try to bore the author out for about a page so that they skip the optional introduction and move on. and then they'll be reading. The first chapter's on abortion. Then there's the.
So you start off nice and light.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, let's take right off. We know that's the first topic that people
pro-life,
recite.
pro-choice.
Yes.
Sure.
Now, I structured it like the book "How Wide the Divide" by Robinson and Blumen. Basically, it's a Mormon and evangelical in conversation.
Okay.
So they take a topic, Trinity or whatever, and here's the Mormon side, here's the evangelical side, and here's a joint conclusion. I thought that's a good format. So I did that, and I've got a right and a left and a joint conclusion for each of those topics.
So every chapter of the book, and let me grab this so I can look down the table of contents. So every chapter, and you start with abortion, you go, here is the left kind of way of looking at abortion, here is the right. And by right, I mean not correct,
yes,
but I mean the conservative way of looking at it. And then a conclusion where you kind of join?
Yeah, a joint conclusion. Yeah, just like they did in How Wide the Divide. Of course, if you skip the optional introduction, you're thinking that there's these two guys named Dan and Noah that are debating these points, and you don't know that they're both me.
So you go abortion, that's chapter 1, and then economics, green politics, politics in the church. What do you think about that? As far as politics in the church.
Oh, that's a fun chapter. That's my prop. I always say that's the Prop 8 chapter. And it is. It basically talks about communication.
Okay.
I mean, I have a gay friend, and when the church came out in support of Prop 8, I thought, well, got to talk to him now. And so my question was, I supported Prop 8 and voted for it. Are we still friends?
Yeah.
I mean, that was,
Right.
And I knew we were good enough friends that I knew he would say, sure, yeah, absolutely.
What was the discussion that he had back in return, though? Because, I mean, that essentially undermines what he probably believes. How did
he just said this has no bearing on our friendship whatsoever. Actually, I quote what he says in there. He said, "Put it out of your mind." This is a visiting professor at New York University. Incidentally, he's an agnostic whose favorite movie is Ben-Hur. So I'm thinking, how can you possibly be an agnostic whose favorite movie is Ben-Hur?
It's what's his name? Tony.
no.
Who's in
Ben-Hur? Give me Charlton Heston.
Charlton Heston.
Oh,
Yeah.
well,
That's what
probably
one of
well, I don't know. Masala was pretty.